This is Propulsion, the financial professional's catalyst to exponential growth. Are you a driven and ambitious financial professional, but you are finding it hard to break through to the next level? Or are you struggling to build and run your practice successfully? Join Francois Dutoy, a leading consultant and trainer, as he interviews not only the experts, but also people you have never heard of before, but who have done amazing things, about how they run their practices, the challenges they face, how they overcome those challenges, their failures, which tech has improved their business, how their revenue models work, and other practical aspects. We go deep so you can learn as much as possible. And here is your host, Francois Dutoy.
So I have the opportunity today to interview one of the stalwarts and leading advocates for the financial planning profession in South Africa and in fact globally. He's a visionary who's on a mission with other like-minded financial professionals. And that's one of the things that stand out. He's not trying to do this alone. He's doing it with other like-minded professionals. And the mission is to transform our financial services industry into a fully fledged noble profession. He's the author of 3 books. He carries many designations and he belongs to quite a number of member bodies like MDRT, FBI, FISA, the FIA, SITE, STEP, the Insurance Institute of South Africa, the Institute of Ethics, and unashamedly ethical. He donates his time, does a lot of volunteer work, a lot of pro bono work. So he's not just saying what he's doing, he's actually walking the talk. He's top 1% on LinkedIn profile holder, top 10 out of almost 22,000 connections on LinkedIn, also top 25 LinkedIn International Financial Planner profile. Welcome to Propulsion, Kobus Kleyn.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you, Francois.
Thank you so much for taking the time, Kobus. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. There are many questions that I actually wanted to ask you. You know, a lot of us have been following you for years now. Before I get to all those questions, passion for the profession. So where does this passion come from and what is driving it?
You know, to be honest with you, Francois, I joined our industry in 1 August 2001. It was a complete change. And initially I was the normal advisor coming in, finding my way, building the book, building the client base. But over time, things changes. You join organizations like the FBI, you join organizations like MDRT, and during those times, you learn best operating practices, but you also see what other people is doing globally, locally, and so on. And passion for the profession really came about around 2008. I was again attending a MDRT session, and I was seeing how people were talking about industries and peers in different professions. And the word industry hit me like a bomb. Because an industry is a factory, if we look at it that way. And factories, what do we do there? We produce goods. And if we look at our industry, are we producing policies and products? And if that is the key of an industry, then something must be wrong. Then I looked a bit deeper and I saw a profession. And I looked at the definition actually of an industry and a profession. And the industry is what I said. It's a manufacturing of products. And if our financial services are there to make products and sell products and produce products, then you're only going to get so far. But a profession actually refers to, if you look at it refers to education, to competency, to discipline, to code of conduct and ethics, continuous CBD. So it covers a lot more than an industry. And that's where my mind started working with itself and say, there must be something deeper here. There must be something noble here. And by talking to a couple of my good friends in MDRT and FBI and all these affiliations that I'm part of, I realized that maybe we can make a difference. Maybe we can take this stigmatization, this grudge purchase away, where people see an industry that they don't want to be part of. I'm talking about the clients, the public. But they actually would be part of something that's more professional. And I don't know, the idea came up. the power of LinkedIn was there, social media was there, and I started this movement, if I can call it this. And this is not a membership movement or fee-based movement or anything. No, this was simply a social media movement where I believed if you can build a strong enough personal brand, that people will start listening to you, observe you. But if you are authentic about what you do and what you believe in, if this is a real cause that you want to have passion for your profession, then one person can be part of it, but a group of people can make a massive difference. You have icons in the world, the Bransons, the Mandelas. Those people on their own can make a huge difference. But people like myself can't make a difference on their own. We need to be a team. So what you were saying is we need to be more than one person. And the group has grown and grown, and the movement has grown and grown. And therefore, just on LinkedIn, I've got 23,000 financial advisors, professionals across the world linked to me. And that platform is making a difference, I believe. And that's where the passion for our profession has come from, if I can say it that way. And I'm very passionate about that, obviously.
That is evident. I mean, like, we had the privilege of working together on one or two committees in the past. And that's why I also in the introduction said, you're not just saying things. It's not just a slogan. It's not just a picture on your email or on your heading on your LinkedIn profile or anything like that. It is, in fact, what you do, and you really believe, and you're working at this every single day. And that is amazing, because a lot of people say things, but they don't follow through. So I from my side, I mean, you have really won me over in recent times. I think everybody goes through, and I want to, with that, get into this question around personal branding. You actually led into that already. What difference did personal branding make? So on the one hand, we've got the movement, and obviously on the other hand, we've got your practice as well. I look at your LinkedIn profile. I see a lot of stuff saying what you're doing for the profession. You look at it, you have to go into the detail to actually see that you're a financial planner as well. So I think a lot of people do that brand that you've built. They link it directly to the profession. We know, like, you at the FBI, we see you at all the functions. We see you at all the workshops, the learning interventions. When you get an opportunity to speak overseas, you're involved with MDRT. So you're really putting in that time. But you're also running a practice. So the one question that I can guarantee you that everybody is wondering about Kobus Kleyn is, how do you do it, Kobus? Where do you find the time? I'll get back into that, but just maybe how did you do this? Because since 2014, you were very, very active on LinkedIn, a lot of content, a lot of things. How did you do it?
Yeah, I have to admit to, obviously, I get asked that question a lot, Francois, because, as you say, I've got my fingers in a lot of pies. I belong to 8 affiliations, but I don't only belong to 8 affiliations. I'm not only a member to that 8 affiliations. In many of those affiliations, at least 4 of them, I serve on committees, and in some of them, I'm chairperson or I'm vice chair of those, and that takes time and effort. But that's part of my philosophy of giving back, of sharing back, pro bono work. That's important. So, in practice, with my practice that I've got, with my balance of life that I have to have with my family and my children and myself. And with the volunteer work, if I can call it that, or trying to make a difference in a profession, it takes a lot of time. It takes long hours sometimes. But what I've done is, over years, I've tried to find ways to be more efficient so that I can create time. No, it's not easy to create time because you only got 24 hours. And there's a couple of ways that I looked at doing this.
Can you share with us?
Yeah. So in principle, I spent 8 months, and that doesn't mean 8 months continuously. I spent 8 months on my practice building. And that means I have a big client base with assets under management and financial planning and retirement planning, investment planning, all those type of things. And that clients take attention. And it's high net worth clients. It's professionals, it's business people, it's SMEs. So it's not the normal clients. And they take a lot of attention. And that's 8 months of the year that I will split up into my practice building. 2 months of the year I spent on volunteer pro bono work within the profession, but also outside of the profession. Where I feel it's socially responsible to get involved with the youth, etc., that I do. And the other 2 months of the year, I spent on my personal life. I spent on holidays, on vacations, on weekends, long weekends, on going away, on overseas, attending conferences, a lot of them overseas, but I always take my wife with, or the kids, depends when and what age. And I always extend. So it's normally a day or two conference, and then I extend. So how do I fit then 12 months into a year efficiently and still run a practice and still get to all those things? Well, it comes to technology. It comes to fintech. It really comes to using your smartphone, your laptop, your notebook, using applications, putting all those things together that can allow me to look after my clients, not letting them down, continuously making sure they are serviced because of online tech, electronic signatures, good F&A packages that works for you, that just the compliance, administration, all in one. And because I create this efficiency through technology, if I can use that, and efficiency, I have more time on my hands. Now, unfortunately, when you do a lot of this work, people can sometimes abuse you. And when you don't say no, then you always say yes. You tend to be serving on more committees and more things. So somewhere at a time you have to call it and say, if I'm now going to create more, is there still technology that can allow me to create more time? But unfortunately, sometimes it takes time for that to grow. So my efficiency comes from technology, not wasting time on when you do meet with clients and so on. And if you put all of that together, you can actually get your fingers in a lot more pies than a normal man in the street. And that's a long story to how to use every technology. But social media and personal branding has been the biggest difference to me. Because I listed on LinkedIn actually in 2005.
Sure. Like when they started.
Just about. Yeah. But if you look at my LinkedIn profile, as I can see, there's not much that went on. Typically linked because somebody told you to link. But yes, from, I would say, 2008, I started getting more active on social media. Because I needed to build a more stronger personal brand for my practice building of it. And LinkedIn, Twitter, and Instagram was my main platforms, but LinkedIn being my primary tool to actually use. And personal branding has changed a lot. You would remember, Francois, we're a bit older than normal younger people. If you wanted to build a personal brand, you better take out adverts in the newspapers, in the local newspapers, in media. You need to pay money to advertise your company brand or your personal brand. Those days are long gone. We are very fortunate that social media, apart from a data package, has allowed us to go mad, to do so much more, so much effectively, so much quicker. So I saw that opportunity. And like anything in life, it's in front of your eyes. It's in front of your face. But if you don't grab it, if you don't embrace it, and people are scared of technology and people are scared of social media. I'm not saying they're scared of using it for their friends and families and so on. No, Facebook is a typical example of it. But business-wise, people are still scared of social media.
They don't want to put themselves out there.
That is exactly. They don't want to expose themselves. So what my key objective was is to really take social media and see how effectively I can build a personal brand. Now, I didn't start with I want to build a personal brand.
Okay.
I just started finding social media interesting, and it offered me so much more with my clients.
Did you sort of want to try and figure out what this can do?
Yes, I wanted to.
Was that part of it?
It was part of it.
Are you an early adopter?
I am an early adopter, and I have a philosophy to say, don't be if you want people to disrupt, you must disrupt them, and you must not be disrupted.
Yes.
I think that makes sense. Okay.
Yes, rather disrupt than be disrupted.
100%. That's what I'm trying to say. And therefore, you need to be the early adopter. You need to make it happen.
So is that a general thing with you, that if there's something new, you're good at identifying that this may be an opportunity, and then you're not afraid to try?
Absolutely. It started from a young age when we still had VHSs and
I remember those Betamax
and those technologies, and then the latest technology came out with DVDs and so on. And from a younger age, I already wanted to know how equipment works, technology works, and the same happened with social media. But just coming back to personal branding. So the personal branding these days, what you had to do in 25 years, you can these days do in a year, in 6 months, in 2 years. But therefore, it's also easy to break it down.
Yes.
By doing the wrong thing on social media. So to me, the most important thing about personal branding or company branding, but let's focus on personal branding. Let's focus on financial planning, personal branding, financial advisor. Because when you have, and this is not accurate figures, but when you have 123,000 intermediaries in this country, when you have 41,000 long-term insurance, financial advisors, investment managers, wealth managers, when you have 4,700 CFPs in this country, you better differentiate yourself. And personal branding is one of those differentiators, where it doesn't matter who phones your clients, you offer more than just a policy or financial advice. You actually offer a personal brand, but you offer part of that personal brand is a value proposition that you offer. And therefore, my opinion about personal branding, it's become the competitive edge. And it doesn't mean we need to be competing with each other all the time, because there's enough clients in this country for every advisor to have at least 275 clients. And you shouldn't have more than 275 clients. And unfortunately, I have more, but it's taking me time to reallocate those clients to my aspirants and so on.
Okay. One of the things I said was, like, in my mind, is that you were the first LinkedIn, and I'm going to put this in quote unquote, celebrities in the financial planning community in South Africa. Because when you think about Kobus, you think about LinkedIn. When you think about LinkedIn, you think about Kobus. And I want to know, like, we've spoken a little bit about this, but was that part of the strategy from day one, to sort of build this thing? Or was it now like, let's just first try out and see? Or did you, when you sat down and said, now I'm going to commit in 2008 to LinkedIn? Number one, why did you decide on LinkedIn? And secondly, then, was that the strategy from day one, or did it evolve into, so did it grow into that strategy, say, wow, this is really something big, and now let me go 100% into this? No,
you've got a spot on. I must admit, it was not a strategy. Although with my past experience, I like to have a plan. I have to put a plan together, have action, and make it work. But with social media, it was so new. Nobody knew where it was going. So no, it was not a strategy from day one. I was interested to get to my first 500 LinkedIn people, if I can call it that. And that 500 was my objective. And that was client base, nothing to do with the profession. That was client base. I was trying to connect my clients to me, to allow for them to see what I'm doing on LinkedIn, and for them as another communication tool, apart from email, with my client base, and to share with them information with other advisors so that we can all learn from it. But when I saw this thing was working, and when I saw my clients was linking up to me, I was happy that it's actually adding value to both of us. Then I wanted to connect to more clients, to use it for recruitment of clients and prospecting of clients, while I was still building my book. And there was different type of clients I was looking for. To answer your question on why LinkedIn. So this is simple. You get Facebook, you get Twitter, you get Instagram, you get Google+, you get all of these things. The fact of the matter is, as financial planners or advisors, where do we want to operate? We want to operate where people need value add, where people need advice. So in my case, I like to operate with small, medium enterprises, with CEOs and MDs of big companies. I want to operate with the guys that's professionals out there, the doctors, the psychologists, and so on. Now, where are you going to find them? On Facebook or on LinkedIn? No, you're going to find them on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
You're going to, if you want to do corporate funds, provident funds, pension funds, medical aid schemes, where are you going to find the human resources, the payroll managers, the CEOs? You're going to find them on LinkedIn. It doesn't mean you're not going to find them on Facebook, but on Facebook, they want to do family things. They don't want to discuss nonsense.
And they're looking for entertainment rather than...
So if you're in the domestic market, if you want to deal, and I mean it in the nicest way, with the divorces, the maternities, the new children, then you want to know what's happening on Facebook. You want to be linked to your peers and your tiers of 1 and 2 and 3, and that friends is having a baby. That's an opportunity for you to do an education policy and those things and to give advice around it. LinkedIn to me is a professional website, and as professionals, we need to operate on a professional website. And that's why my master platform is LinkedIn, if I can say that.
And I fully agree with that for me as well. So I used to be, a lot of people say that you need to be on all the platforms. I, over the years with experience, found that, number one, I don't think it's practical. And you need to decide which one is your primary one, which you've also did. Even in my business, we look at LinkedIn, that's our primary. And then Twitter is the only second one that I never use, actually. I'm very bad when it comes to Twitter. But LinkedIn is the place where everything happens, and then on the website. So I want to get in there because what you're saying is very interesting to me. One of the talks I do is obviously on personal branding and social media and so on. And I want to come back to one thing about all the platforms and all the social media websites. What I'm trying to do, and this is a plan, if you want to call it that, this is not just coincidental. And I've started with this about 3 years ago. You mentioned 2014, you seem very active, that I've become even more active, but 3 years ago. And what I think I am creating is where LinkedIn is becoming my CV, as you said, because you can go through your profile and see everything. LinkedIn has definitely become my website. I don't have a website per se. LinkedIn is my website. LinkedIn has become my blogging tool because I can blog on it. LinkedIn has become my Instagram. If you don't abuse it, because a photo does say 1,000 words. Yeah, definitely does.
LinkedIn has become my Twitter to a certain extent. If I sit in a conference, I can tweet on LinkedIn, if you want to say that, short post. Again, don't abuse it. You know what I'm saying? So what is LinkedIn doing? LinkedIn is becoming an all-in-one for me. But you need to be careful not to have a Facebook item on a LinkedIn if you don't link it to business, some business idea or something about business or professionalism and so on. And I have a feeling I'm creating something very unique in how you can use one platform. Now, that doesn't mean I don't use Twitter or Instagram, but I use it not on a frequent basis. And if I do it, I would link it to some of my posts as well, or I would circulate the post on that. And I think that's a challenge for many financial advisors out there. Because if you want to focus on 5 platforms, your efficiency goes out of the back door. And that's where I create efficiency, by making new norms out there. So if you listen to what I said, CV, website, blogging tool, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, can you have it all in one? I think you can do a lot to get it combined. Yeah. But you can't do it only on that platform.
No, definitely. And the one thing that I believe in is that you should still have a website. So I want to talk about that very quickly. And the reason for that is on social media platforms, I mean, as you're scrolling through, it's just the one and you're still busy reading this and then you see the next thing and the next thing. So there's a lot of noise in your feed, on your phone, whatever the case may be. But the idea, if you can move someone to go to your website, I mean, so social media is very, very dynamic and you can have content, you can update it quickly. The website is not so easy to update it frequently, but you can get them out of the noise and just have their attention there. So what are your views around that? Because as you said quite clearly, LinkedIn can do everything that you can do on your website.
Good question. And I have very, very definite thoughts about it, and thinkings around websites. I have no problem with a website. As a financial advisor, I never had really my own website. I created one or two, tried it and so on and started, but I don't have a website. But our company has got a website.
Yes.
And we do run the website through that and so on. Do I link to that website as a financial planner? No, I don't. Here's the key. I believe there's a need for websites. And I think there's a need for websites for newbies. People that start up in this financial advisor that has to do a lot of products and so on and get it out there and so on and want to pull as a magnet people to their website and therefore social media, because you're not just going to put a website out there and people is going to start logging in. Because remember what I said in the beginning, and in many sales businesses, because we are still a sales business as well, there must be a win-win. Yes, it must be a financial advice business and a financial planning business. But some of the time, somebody must make money to pay the bills. Let's not get past that.
No.
But remember what I said in the beginning. This industry is still perceived as a grudge industry, where people don't want to buy a life cover to die because they don't want to die. But people believe they can do better with their money and they can do their own insurance, self-insurance, by not having car insurance or this insurance. It's okay. And because of that grudge sale, we have a 82 trillion gap insurance cover. So that means there's people short. And in my lifetime, in your lifetime, we would never be able to fill that gap because it will take maybe 50, 60 years. And because of that grudge, people need to be educated and be made aware that financial planning will overcome that grudge. And that grudge that you see for your life cover policy or your disability policy or your dread disease policy, and I want to say something key here, is an investment.
Yeah.
It's an investment because you will get a return on your investment, because unfortunately we all die somewhere at a time.
If you wait long enough,
unfortunately. And therefore I think the way we as financial planners drive awareness around, we do give financial planning advice, we are advisors, and products as a consequence of good financial planning.
Yeah.
That is important. And therefore the website is important. And I'm saying I'm not using a website, but I know many financial advisors, some of the top guys that are using websites effectively. But we must remember one thing about a website in a financial services industry or a profession is it's only there for awareness. It's there to drive awareness of maybe your personal brand, your company brand. It's there to drive awareness that you have a value add to clients. Is clients going to log in to buy products on your website? No, I don't see that. Is clients gonna if you put an advert in a newspaper, is clients going to just phone you and say, I want to buy a life cover policy? No, I don't see that.
Yeah.
And that's why I say a website is a good tool, but it's not everything in the sales process or the financial advice process.
Definitely.
But if you can pull people to it, it will make a difference on the awareness drive. And that's my philosophy about a website. I'm certainly not saying you shouldn't have a website. Yes. I'm just saying I'm trying something different.
Yeah.
And I can tell you it's working for me.
And also, I mean, on social media, you can have this two-way communication.
Yes.
It's quick. You can do things in the moment, which you can't do on your website. So it is a lot more dynamic. It is a lot more valuable, I think, from that point of view. I want to ask you, if you started out today, and I know you used the word newbie, and is it like now you have got no experience, you're coming to this industry or hopefully profession very soon, and you want to build a personal brand? How would you do it? And just keeping in mind that, when you start out, I think 11 out of 10 times you don't have any support staff. You are on your own. You need to do the things you need to do. You need to prospect. You want to build the practice. But you also have this need to build this personal brand. How would Kobus Kleyn go about that if we go back to 2001 and we had a LinkedIn and all these wonderful tools we have today?
Yeah, that's a toughie, because life has changed. Technology has changed. Social media didn't exist 20 years ago, or not actually social media, the Internet of Things as we call it. And I also want to make it clear to understand that any newcomer in this business, and this is not a business, this as an industry or professions is one of the toughest industries or professions to join. And especially because of those things you've mentioned, the support, the infrastructure, the commission structures versus fee structures, and I think RDR is going to change a lot of that, fortunately. But therefore, the question is, how long are you going to do cold calling? And cold calling, as we all know, is tough as it is, but in the future, POPI legislation will stop that type of. Then it comes to emails. How long do you want to send out emails? How long do you want to drive your website to get people? You know what I'm saying? And I call it, you either pull people to you or you have to push people to you. And I like the pull option more, where you become the magnet. And by you becoming the magnet on social media or your personal brand, you would never have to make a cold call again. And I'm a great example of that because, I just don't have to. Actually, in simple fact, I can't keep up. And I'm not looking per se for new clients so much anymore because I've got a book I need to manage. And if you don't manage a book, you will lose clients. But to come back there for it, how would I do it? For those new guys out there less than 2 years, I would go onto social media. I would go onto LinkedIn. I would go into premium LinkedIn. Now, there's a bit of a catch-22 there because at R1,000 a month, premium LinkedIn is not cheap when you're trying to build a practice and you build a business. But you need to get a sponsor for that. You need to just make a plan. And I always say a consequence of a good financial advisor is if you have enough consequences of loss, that means you've bought the car, you need to pay the car, you bought the house, you got married, you have a child, you need to use LinkedIn. It means you have to work blooming harder. You have to increase your activity tremendously to pay the bills. So sometimes you need to create expenses. I know it sounds funny for a financial planner, but if you do that, you have an incentive to work harder. So that admin goal, most financial advisors out there don't have an admin goal, an admin assistant from day one. I had one from 2 weeks after I joined. To pay somebody that type of money, and you're not even earning enough money, there's a consequence of loss. Does it make sense what I'm saying?
Yes.
So the R1,000 on a premium LinkedIn, because if you really want to go from cold calling or email calling or what you want to call it, to using LinkedIn professionally, and there's a search section that's amazing, where you can pin it down to a specific occupation, a specific niche market, a specific person in a specific company, but you can only do that on premium. So there's the keys. Firstly, use LinkedIn. But if you're in the domestic market, and when you are a newcomer, if I call it that, you're not just going to start speaking to CEOs or high-level people or professionals. You sometimes have to then use Facebook. And I believe Facebook, as part of MDRT, we share a lot. And a lot of my female MDRT members and some of the men MDRT advisors as well across 70 countries in the world, it's amazing to see how successful they're using Facebook. But they are purely in the domestic market. Yeah. And that's a market they are happy with. And we all need to look at certain markets. And therefore, I believe, depends on where you are in your career, in your years of service, you may use different websites. But if you really want to do well, you're going to have to go back to LinkedIn one at a time or use a combination of it. And therefore, start it off. Don't just connect and don't just link for the sake of link. You can follow as much as you want to, but be careful to connect because eventually, and I want to make it clear, people ask me, but Kobus, you say all these things, but you are connected to 23,000 people. I said, yeah, but you're missing the point. I'm only connected to about 700 to 800, call it files and clients, because I have some files, I have some clients, and that's why I re-intermediate them between my advice partners and so on. But to me, any good advice on LinkedIn should really not be connected more than 500 to 1,000 people. And especially if it's not their own clients, if that is prospects. So when you connect, try to connect to 50 at any given time. Then take 3 months to 6 months to build a virtual relationship with that client. How do you build a virtual relationship with a client? That's where it gets interesting. So you're now connected. Hopefully the client has accepted your connection. You're not just a link to him to follow. There's a difference between a follower and a connection. Yes. And people don't always appreciate that. Okay. So now you have a situation where if that guy's birthday notification come in, you will do an in-mail because you can now. And if you have got premium, you can do more than just 10 or whatever it is. Secondly, if it's his anniversary on his job, you can have interaction. But that's only the short ones, once a year or so on. The biggest interaction comes from his post. You now will interact with his post. You would interact with his comments on a post. You will definitely interact on his publication on a post, because many people don't interact on publications. Yeah. And there's a difference between a post and a publication. There's a difference between a comment and an interaction. And there's a difference between a like, it's not Facebook, and a comment interacting. And I don't care how short the comment is. If you're going to like something, then make a comment while you're at it, most probably. Now the client is seeing every time your photo, and that's important with your personal brand and with LinkedIn, have your photo on it. And have a clear photo on it. And have a photo that looks professional on it. And then the client will see that all the time. You have not once talked sales to him. You've not once asked for an appointment. The worst thing that you can do on LinkedIn is, as soon as you connect to somebody and that person connect back to you, you have this little advert going out that you want to do financial planning. Yes. That is not the way to do it. So the way to do it is to build a virtual relationship. Where it took years to build a brand, to build a virtual relationship, in my opinion, can take 3 months. But don't try to do it quicker than that. And once you start see that prospect interacting with you and your post, because they're going to feel, maybe I should be doing this, then that's the interesting thing. Then you can say, oh, this is actually evolving. And you're doing it with a plan, obviously. You're doing a personal branding while you're at it. You're building that virtual. And you're hoping to turn that, if the guy is locally, into a face-to-face. But these days you can operate virtually. You don't only have to have a face-to-face client. I have clients across the world, and it really works if you have Skype or Zoom or any one of those things. And therefore, there's a process to follow. And in the book, under personal branding, I discuss a lot of that, of how to actually use LinkedIn and social media. And it's difficult to go in all the details. But any newcomer, if he reads any ebook I give out free lately as a gift. Sorry, I don't want to say free, but as a gift. So anybody listening to this podcast that wants to learn more about personal branding can just drop us an email, you or me, Francois, and we will give them an ebook with a password and a link. And hopefully they can learn a lot more from that. Not only personal branding, but the 9 P's I referred to. Yeah. And that's passion, it's purpose, it's positioning, it's practice building, it's personal branding, it's passive income and professionalism at the end of the day.
Yes. Awesome. Thank you very much for that gift, Kobus. I think it's important. And I don't think there's much of a better way to give back and to help the newbies. Because one of the challenges that I find in what I do is that, when they need things the most, they can't afford it. It's very, very difficult. And I think one of the mistakes that newbies, if we can call them that, make is that they see these things as expenses instead of as investments. They're too afraid to take the step to appoint somebody, or to at least then share a resource, for example, because I'm not earning the money yet. If you're going to wait to earn that money, you're going to stay stuck in that mode. So thank you very much for that. The next question I want to ask you, so you are going, if my information is correct, you're going to a conference in the Caribbean somewhere, and you're going to talk about accelerate your brand. Does the content of that, is that what we've been speaking about today, or is that something else?
Yes, in May, I've been invited to a beautiful place called Belize. And it's recently been in news with Mr. Branson going into that deep blue hole to see how deep that hole is, that in the sea in Belize, or very close to Belize. And I'm going to speak to many of the countries, Jamaica and Barbados and so on. It's a group, they call it a conference, and this is the 53rd conference they're having. So it's well established and so on. And they've invited me purely on my personal brand on LinkedIn. That's the interesting thing. It's not something I've asked for. I get many of these invites all over Africa and in the world. Yeah. But in this case, it was amazing because they're going to have their financial advisors attending this conference over 3 days. And I'm one of the guest speakers invited. And they then said, what topic would you like to speak to? Because they can see I speak about a lot of things. I said, personal branding. And then I said, let's talk about accelerate your brand, because I'm also now busy with doing my 4th book. and my 4th book out of 5 books that I'm writing over 5 years is Accelerate Your Brand. And it's exactly what it says. Accelerate your brand. Now, if I wanted to put a longer title to it, I would say accelerate your brand with social media. And I have learned so much with social media and how to build a personal brand that it would be selfish not to share that with other of my fellow financial advisors, planners. And I actually get even invited these days to do talks outside of this industry, to other sales companies and so on, because it's all about personal branding. So I'm very, very excited to go over there in May, again for 2 weeks. I've got a platform speaking I'm doing on Accelerate Your Brand, but then I've also asked me to do a workshop, and the workshop will be Pearls of Wisdom, and what did I have learned for first-year consultant, second-year consultant, third-year, fourth and fifth-year consultants. And that would be an hour workshop that I will be holding. So after a day there, I'll most probably attend the second day, and then myself and my spouse will be going to the coast there, a beautiful island, and we'll be spending 7 days there in a romantic place. And that's balance of life. That's whole person life. And the accelerated of brand is very similar to what we've spoken now, but it goes much deeper, to be honest with you. And it really focuses on social media and personal branding. And that personal branding, I just want to go in there. The personal branding, the LinkedIn and all those things are not only for newcomers. It's not only for newbies. My talks go from what I call the newcomers in the first 5 years. Then I call them the in-betweeners. And those are the guys that's between year 10 and 20, as an example. And then I call it the masters, the guys with 20 years plus. And my talk is how to cover all three those newcomers, those in-betweeners, and those masters. Because the funny thing is, don't think personal branding and social media is only for newcomers. Not at all. Because the millenniums out there are getting clever how to use technology, and they're attacking the master's business units and the practices. So as a master, what I focus on is to help those masters to use social media to not do prospecting, but to safeguard their current business book by having a strong personal brand. Because then the people come on phone for appointments, they're not going to get it, because you add more than a value proposition, a personal brand. And that's why I focus on Accelerate Your Brand. I'm writing a whole book on it because I believe there's much more than one chapter called personal branding in a book.
Definitely. Jacob, I'm excited to get all of that book specifically. Do you know when it'll be coming out, more or less?
It will come out in 2019. I was hoping actually to launch it before May when I do the talk on the platform where I'm doing the talk. But as you said, when you have your fingers in so many pies, I try to write my books normally when I fly, on these long flights, 17 hours, 50 hours. But I'm not ready yet. And because it's such an important book for me, I'm not just going to issue a book because of the sake of issue a book. So I'm doing it really. And it is about mastering personal branding. And therefore, I'm really covering a lot. And remember, my books mostly is what I believe in and what I've learned from best operating practice from my affiliations.
Yes.
So it's not only Kobus Kleyn, but I don't use resources. I don't do references in my books. I write what's from the heart.
Okay, amazing. So that's a lot of information on personal branding. Thanks for that, Kobus. There's a lot of value there. I mean, the bottom line is it doesn't matter whether you're new, whether you've been around for years, inexperienced, very experienced. Personal branding is an important aspect of building a business. It doesn't matter, in fact, which business you're in, because at the end of the day, you can have a company can let you down, but it's still your brand will. And many years ago, when I was still a broker consultant, one of the guys that I worked with, Chris the Toy, so he's not family, but he's also the Toy, and also from the Free State like me. So what he said was, like, when you start off, like, especially if you're like a consultant, you start looking after new financial advisors. We used to look after more the independent market and that. And he said that you first sell yourself, then your company, then your product. And that's what we said back in the day. Now it's got a proper name called personal branding because people buy you. And whatever happens after that, if your personal brand is strong enough, you can survive most things.
You know, you're hitting it spot on, because when I do my talks, I exactly say two things. The first thing is you must become the magnet. And by you becoming the magnet, you'll never have to do a cold call again. You won't keep up with the amount of people wanting to talk to you and so on. And that magnetic pull comes from the personal brand. And it goes from a push to a pull. Secondly, I'll make this statement very clearly. Doesn't matter who you affiliated to.
Yeah.
People buy you, and you've said it, and I couldn't agree with you more. Therefore, people buy your personal brand. But it's nothing wrong to have a sub-brand. And a sub-brand is your financial services company that you support, or companies that you support, or products that you support. Absolutely. But if you're going to use that as your brand, and I'm trying to be very diplomatic here, if you're going to use that as your brand, and the first time that company is in the news, and I won't mention companies' names, but this last year, we've seen 3 major financial services providers and 3 of the top 5 being in the news. And unfortunately, negative news, not positive news. The first thing clients are going to see is the brand linked to that company. But if it's a Kobus Kleyn brand, they see Kobus Kleyn. And if Kobus Kleyn supports coincidentally those companies, hopefully the trust and respect has built up so much that they believe in Kobus Kleyn and Kobus Kleyn's recommendations and advice, and not the brand that's got the negative news in a public domain. So that is exactly one of the main reasons for personal branding, Francois. You've hit it on the nail.
Great stuff. So let's step off personal branding for a second. Tell us just as short as you can, because I know you're very busy, but a day in the life of Kobus Kleyn. What is a typical day? Because I mean, it's very interesting to me what you said, like you do for 8 months, you work on your practice, 2 months is your volunteer pro bono, give back committees, those kind of things. And then 2 months, because I see you've spoken a lot about the whole person, the MDRT philosophy around that. But just a typical day, so give me a typical day, maybe in the first 8 months or whatever 8 months, because they're not continuous, but in the 8 months that you run your practice, what does a typical day look like for Kobus?
Well, what is interesting what you're saying there is I actually wrote 2 articles on a typical day in the life of a financial planner, and in this case myself. And the first one, if I remember, was in 2014 or 15, and that was an international magazine that I wrote it. And then a year ago, or not even, in the last year, somebody asked me to write this. I think it was the FBI. I'm trying to think in which magazine. But then I wrote the second one, and it's a 1-pager of my typical day. But it's interesting because I had the old article, is to see how my typical day has changed because of your book changing, your clients changing, your life changing, and hopefully you're learning from your bad mistakes. But before I say what my typical day is, and I'm going to keep it short and sweet, I want to tell you there's one thing that any financial advisor must become aware of, is what is your value per hour. And if you know your value per hour, so I know while I'm sitting with you exactly what I'm earning per hour, even if I'm not doing any business or writing a single policy or single investment, because I know what my passive income is. You understand what I'm saying? Now, if you know what your value is per hour, your typical day should work around that. So if your value, for instance, is 1,000 Rand per hour, so if your typical day is waking up or being at the office at 9 o'clock in the morning, and you should be there at 7 o'clock in the morning, you've lost 2,000 Rand. You understand what I'm saying? So my typical day is around my whole person concept, it's around my client's satisfaction, and it's around what I can do for the profession. And here's a typical day. It would normally start at most probably 5:30, 6 o'clock, and that would be waking up. And that would be, the first thing I'll do is normally try to spend 15 to 20 minutes cleaning my mind, smelling the roses. I don't know, that's what I maybe want to call it. And I really, because I wake up early, my spouse normally sleeps late, because she's also got her own business, but it doesn't start early. And therefore, I just clean my mind. That is a very critical start for me to the day.
Is that like meditation kind of thing?
It's not meditation in the way we understand it, but it is. Where did I come from yesterday? Did I use my time effectively 24 hours when I went to go and sleep last night? When I wake up this morning, how am I feeling? Am I feeling positive? If I don't feel positive, I would mostly consider cancelling some of my meetings and so on, because it's unfair to my clients and so on. But that's what I'm talking about, cleaning my mind and having a bit of plan. But also, I just sit there for 10 minutes and I just think good things and I think positive things.
That is so important, Kobus, and actually amazing to hear that. A lot of people say that, and I experienced that, is that we don't take the time to think or to reflect. I think reflection is something that's missing with a lot of us. And by taking that, you're not taking a day, a retreat, or a weekend retreat, or a month, or a sabbatical to do that. Every morning, 10 to 20 minutes, reflect on what happened yesterday. How are you feeling? Why are you feeling? So it's that awareness as well. So, wow, that's a great start to the day, I must say.
And it's sitting in a corner, if you want to call it that, where there's no noise. And in the mornings in my house, there's no noise. I can tell you that, because there's no more children left in the house. The domestic only comes in at 7 o'clock in the morning. So it's dead quiet and my wife is sleeping. So that would be fun. Number 2 would be where you want to make sure that you get dress appropriate. Because professionalism, in my opinion, is still very important here, and how clients see you and how clients perceive you. And therefore I would, after I've done that and I've had a good shower, and I shower every morning, it's just the way I feel clean and neat and so on. And what would happen then is I would reflect on where I'm going from there, and normally that's to my office. So I would get my mindset already ready that I've got a traffic that I need to deal with. So I would normally be in the office. There's one thing I do before that. I read the news. News 24, I've got the application just for that. CNN, Skype, a couple of things there, and I read the news and I get up to date, and that takes me about 30 minutes. Because I need to be up to date with the economy, the politics, and these days with Brexit and Trumpet and so on. I watch that a lot and I read a lot about it, because I need to be able to advise my clients on investment patterns and what's happening and what is not happening. So I would be in the office normally at 7:30, latest at 8 o'clock, depends on the traffic. And because I have an office-based practice, it's very important. About, I would say 95% of my clients come to my office. And I would never let them try to come and pick our traffic at 8 o'clock to my office. So when I'm here, I normally have time with my personal assistants, and those personal assistants will quickly do day-to-day signing and doing this and planning. And is my diary okay? I've got one planning my diary and underwriting, one planning, the clients, etc., etc. And therefore, my first hour would be with my admin staff and setting myself up, feeling comfortable in my office and so on. 9 o'clock, I would have my first client. And I would normally have minimum 3 clients a day. It's called activity. And I'm not having activity to build a book anymore and anything. I have activity because I need to do my annual reviews. And 3 of my clients would normally be annual reviews, and 2 of my clients will either be new clients, and I don't take on too many of them, but it would be a client with a claim problem. And just for instance, in the last 2 weeks, I had 2 of my clients dying, and it takes a lot of time, and you need to leave time in your diary to deal with the family and the claims, etc., and make sure you attend the funeral and so on. So therefore, I plan 3 to 5 meetings a day. And that I find, and that normally is an hour and a half, to be honest with you. When you've done your financial needs analysis, and you now keep it updating annually, and your clients see you, there's not always that much to do with existing clients who've been your client for 15 years or 18 years, etc. So therefore, my typical day would be 3 to 5 clients a day. But I would have open days, and those open days would be, and it maybe would be a Monday or Friday, would be for my volunteer work and my pro bono work. Not every day. There will be in a week open days. And those would be a committee meeting here, committee meeting there, and getting involved with conferences locally and so on, seminars, webinars, those type of things. I would normally leave the office, normally late as 5 o'clock, to be honest with you. And then I will drive home, to be home at around 5:30. I used to work massive hours. I used to work 18 hours a day. And it caused a lot of problems with my family and so on. Unfortunately, I've learned from it, and that's why I did the book, for other people to learn from my mistakes, hopefully. So when I get home at 5:30, these days it's easy because there's no kids anymore in the house. It's my wife, and I would spend time with her in the kitchen. I don't cook. I'm not a good cook. I'm trying to learn to cook now that I've got a bit more time. But I'll just be around her and so on. We would then eat together. We'll watch a bit of TV together. And then I would And this is what people don't understand. When you love what you do, when you're passionate about what you do, work is your passion. And work is not always work.
Yes.
But I would sometimes, because both myself and my wife has got our own businesses, and we've set up our house, very interesting, that you actually have 2 rooms next to each other. So she's an artist, I am a beautician, an esthetician. So she's got 2 rooms, and she would paint in the evenings. I would sit in a room next to her. We can talk to each other. We can hear each other. We can feel the atmosphere in each other. And what I would then do after 8 is my volunteer work.
Okay.
I would write emails with MDR2, FPI, FIA. I would work on the committee work and so on. And I would do that between 8 to 10 o'clock easily. And we will get into bed at 11 o'clock, and then we'll watch a bit of TV. Because my wife likes to watch TV to fall asleep, and I just fall asleep after a long day.
I'm sure.
So there's nothing complex about the day. I can tell you what is important about the day is when I go and sleep, I ask myself, did I use every second and every minute efficiently and effectively? Did I contribute to society? Did I contribute to my clients? Did I contribute to our profession? Did I contribute to myself? And am I contributing to my family? If I can go and sleep there, and now I'm going to wake up the next day and do exactly the same, but because our business is so diversified that it never will be boring.
Yeah.
And here's the key, Francois. If you are passionate, and people say, but don't overuse this word passionate or passion, or if you're passionate, you're always going to make money either way and so on. Forget it. It's not about that. If you are really passionate about what you do, your work becomes your life, becomes your balance, and your balance becomes your work, becomes your life, and it's a happy medium.
Yeah.
You never get tired. And your passion is the blooming Red Bull in your life. You don't need Red Bull.
That's so true, Kobus. Sure. And the plane going overhead is just also like, that is what will launch you, as long as it's not a Boeing 737.
A Max.
Yes. I want to talk about client experience. That is such an important differentiator. All the clients expect good service. Everybody, we know what we do, but it's become so commoditized. I mean, to such an extent that we've got fintech trying their best, not succeeding, but trying their best to replace advice.
Yeah.
In the sense of which product to take, how much do you want to invest, what are you trying to achieve, and to analyze that and give you an answer, and you can DIY it. So for me, I've spent a lot of time the last month or month and a half and so looking at experience. How do we create real client experiences? And I just want to share, when I walked in here, as you said, you're in a temporary office because you're busy renovating your actual offices, but still I walk into your office and it's like, wow. And there's the silver tray on the desk. There's a little mineral water. There's a cupcake. There is a beautiful red flower there. It's just wow, was that for me? Yes. When you didn't need to do that, and I just I sort of felt what that felt like, just wow, that was for me, So that's a very small part of creating a client experience. Can you talk us through a little bit? What do you do with your clients? What is the process that you go through every time that you have to interact with clients?
You call it the client experience, and I like it and so on. People refer to the value add and the value proposition. I call it the wow factor. And a fellow friend of mine in the UK, Mrs. Hoshkin, she called herself the wow company. And I've learned a lot from her as well. But I call it the wow factor. And a lot of it I've picked up from affiliations. The wow factor is, how do you put the value proposition together? How do you make your clients feel exactly the way you hopefully to a certain extent felt? How do you feel you're special? Because when you run an office-based practice, and people don't understand that when you're in an industry or profession that's a grudge industry, and it's not everybody wake up in the morning and want to support this industry, you need to do something different. You need to disrupt the industry. And our wow factor is what makes a difference. And there's a couple of things that makes a difference there. So if you want people to come to your office, you better make it comfortable for them. So from making the first appointment or the the annual review appointment on a continuous basis. It is about bringing people to your office. Now, if you want them to come to your office, you want to make sure they've got a decent GPS or an application running that they can just park here. When they park here, is there sufficient parking, etc.? Do they feel they come? Is somebody meeting them at the door, at the reception? Is the girls in your office dress code appropriate? Is your dress code appropriate? Do you look like a professional organization? And from then they sit down at our entrance in nice, comfortable chairs, and they get a menu called Menu with Kobus. And that menu has got cupcakes on there, sweeties on there, chips on there, cappuccinos on there, hot chocolate on there, coffee on there. I can go on and on and on. And they then order from the menu. It's very important. The girls then make sure that we have, as you say, a professional way of bringing it in. By that time, clients would come into my office, and I would not normally let clients wait in the reception area. My planning is always to have a half an hour gap if one client runs over. And what's nice about an practice is you're never late for any meetings. And apart from all the cost you're saving, expense you're saving, but you operate in a professional environment with the right screen, people can see it, the right equipment, the right scanning and printing, all the facilities there, your admin assistance is there, but also your continuity partners. So I have 3 partners that is succession planning, mentorship, and so on. And every time one of my clients come to visit me, that's a value proposition. I introduce them to one of them because the clients want to know if the bus drives over you, who's going to look after my financial plan? And they meet Susan, they meet John Marie, they meet all those people. So they come in, they sit, and we spoil them, if I can call it that. We really try to spoil them. And sometimes it's better, it depends what sweets we have and things. And once that happens, they feel comfortable. And actually, they now want to come back the next time. Because that's the first thing is to get a client to your office for the first time. Yeah. The second thing is to get him to come back again for the second time, the second and third and the fourth time. And then it's about the way your office is structured, the way your office is set up. It's quiet. There's no disturbances. And that is part of the whole value proposition. It is also when a new client or prospect walk into your office, what does he see against your walls? What does he see against your display cabinet? 9 out of 10 times when a new client is referred to you, if your personal brand is strong enough, you don't have to introduce yourself. You don't have to put anything out there. Your clients already told them. Exactly. But still, when they walk in and they sit down, I would maybe go out for a couple of seconds to go and do something, and they have time to observe. That already puts this as a value proposition of note. Couple of trophies, couple of this certificates, CFP, all these things that makes a difference to how clients feel.
With other famous people.
It's when a client walks into a GP's office or a surgeon's office, he wants to see the certificate he's qualified, to surgeon on me. I think that is important. But now there's something more that I want to talk to you about, the value proposition, Francois. Financial planning is a great value proposition. It's part of it, okay? But when you're really dealing with small, medium enterprises, professionals, you need to offer more than financial planning. You need to offer more than advice and products and investments. So what we as a company set ourselves up is to have also short-term insurance available of various companies. We have a brokerage available where we deal with various companies, because you don't just want to cancel policies because you're dealing with one financial services company only. But we have people that is advisors in those companies that we work together as partnerships. So I can have a meeting here with 3 people in my office, and it may be from this insurance company, it may be my attorney, it may be my tax advisor, accountant, and that's the way we deal with businesses, partnerships, and so on. So what I'm saying is the value proposition is, do you do the following? Do you do tax for your clients? Not you as an advisor necessarily. Although I'm qualified as a tax advisor, I never do my clients' tax advisor because it's a conflict of interest. And therefore I have association, or we have our own accounting company that we have in the group, or we have our own legal people that does the wills, the shareholders agreements, and all the things. So therefore, give more. And give a one-stop shop, if I can call it that. So do the tax for your clients, do the accounting, bookkeeping for your small, medium enterprises, your professionals like your doctors and so on. Make sure that you can service current policies, not you yourself necessarily, but through your advice broker that you've got set up, etc. And make sure you can deal with the short-term insurance claims and the short-term business and so on. So you can appreciate there's much more. And the way you set up your legal associations, if you don't have it inside your company as well, and for many years we first had those as associations, your accounting associations, wherever you can add value to what I call financial life planning or life stage planning. And financial life planning means everything is integrated. Because without tax,
Yes.
you can't do financial planning. Without legal, if the person gets divorced, if the person has to go to the CCMA, our associated legal advisors and legal attorneys deal with all those things for our clients. We deal with their divorces, but because we deal independent with them, both the divorcees stay with us.
Yeah.
And I still look after both of them.
Yeah.
And that, the whole value proposition, that's the wow. That is not about the policy. It's not about the 100 Rand saving by cancelling policies to go from one service provider to the next service provider to the next service provider. Because if the value proposition between all those services you offer is worth much more than 100 Rand saving on the policy. And if you therefore create the wow and you create the value proposition correctly with all the personal branding, then 10 other advisors can phone your client and try to get appointments with them. And 9 out of 10 times, I'm not saying clients are not going to listen. Depends where that client is in a relationship with you.
Sure.
Could be a new client of 6 months, maybe he's going to listen. But 10 years down the line, maybe not. 5 years down the line, maybe not. And that's why that three combinations of personal branding, an office-based practice, continuity partnerships, and having a professional organization with a one-stop service, for the lack of a better word.
Yeah.
Don't like to call it, but one-stop service.
Yes.
Then clients are being pulled to you all the time. And those magnets become so strong that clients would not normally leave you. Does it mean I don't lose clients or I lose clients? Of course, we all do. They either go bankrupt or they go expating or they go overseas on financial immigration, or some of them actually said, maybe this marriage is not working. Because a financial planning is a matrimonial financial planning. And therefore it's important when you do introductory meetings, in the sake of your and your prospects' benefit, decide there and then if you're going to walk this road for the next 20, 30 years. And if you don't walk away from it or give it that referral to somebody else where that client likes your face, likes your personality, otherwise that marriage is going to end up in a divorce.
Definitely. You say such true, and those are facts and principles and laws. It's just how it works. Doesn't matter what business you're in. It's so true. I want to talk about revenue for a moment. One of the 9 P's you talk about in your book, Passion for the Profession, Mastering the 9 P's to Professionalism, is passive income. How have you built this into your practice over the years? Where are you with it? Because I think this is a big enabler for you to be able to do what you're doing. I think a lot of the things you're doing today, you wouldn't have been able to do in 2001, 2002, maybe. I don't know. I'm just making an assumption. But that kind of income, that recurring income, knowing that you've got a base, it enables you to do a lot of things.
But you know what's interesting here? It's nice to see a person interviewing somebody doing their homework. And you've obviously done your homework, Francois, I can see it. You know the industry as well, and obviously what we do as a profession. But it's very nice, and you've done your homework, and you're spot on, okay? And therefore, it is about passive income. And if you create enough passive income, and that was my biggest challenge, as you will read in my book, which I had to overcome, because I was not giving my kids enough attention. I was not giving my wife enough attention. Actually, I wasn't giving my dog any attention, and when I get home he starts barking
Sorry that
at
I'm
me.
laughing now. It's just like I resonate with some of these things.
So when you build a practice, you have to do it. When you're in your first 5 years, don't think you're going to get a whole person life, in my opinion. But over time you want to get there, and you still want to try to keep a bit of a balance, but you're never going to get the right. If anything, I've actually gone the opposite. My balance to my whole person has gone a bit more to the right. And I'm actually doing too much of that. And I need to next year decide to get back to my practice as well a bit more, because I've overdone the overseas trips, 5 a year, and the holidays and the weekends and long weekends and so on. And my wife is seeing too much of me.
But you're just
lately.
catching up for those early years.
I was catching up for those blooming early years. So
Yes.
passive income creates time. Why does it create time? Because it means that you know that the morning when you wake up, you've already earned your income. Isn't that wonderful? That means there's no forced selling or forced sales or products. It's financial planning advice that comes into it. And you can only do that, in my opinion, when you've built up passive income. Now, you've asked the question, how did I build it into my practice? No, I'll go a step further.
Yeah.
It's how do you build it into your life? Now, here's important. I was in big companies for many years, for 18 years. I climbed the corporate company ladder from mechanical engineer right up to divisional MD of some big companies. And I went through companies like South African Breweries and Ampak and Metalbox and Altron, and I can go on. And I was never in a position for longer than 2.5 years, because I believed you shouldn't be stagnating. But I've learned a lot there. And while I was climbing it, I got share portfolios and I got share incentive schemes. Most people sell these things and then, whoops, they buy the cars and the boats and, keeping up with the Joneses. No, I got a bit more, I don't know why, but I got a bit more clever, and I kept the shares. And these days I have a share portfolio of note, and the dividends from that, although you pay these days 20% on it, it's actually passive income. And the asset value growth is a bonus on top of it, but it's really about the dividends. But secondly, it's also the property business over the years, and I've been building the shares for 25 years. But then the property business also is an interesting business. When the market was booming between the 1995s to the 2007, you could buy a property for 5,000 rand, put a deposit down. You could build it in 3 months. They built it for you in 3 months, plot and plan, as they called it those days. And you can sell it for 30% profit and so on. But eventually you need to keep a couple of properties, get rental income. So therefore you can have a rental or property business. You can have a share business. And if you just combine those two, between your rental incomes and your dividends in your life, that's not your company or practice. That's separate companies. And depends if you're doing it in your personal capacity or in CCs or companies. You're already building a passive income there. But it takes money and it takes time, you know what I'm saying? But then you get to your practice. And your practice, there I focus a lot on building passive income. And how do you do that? Yes, of course, we get what we call the normal contribution increases, the ACIs, the ABIs, that some of the guys will know exactly what I'm talking about, the second years, those are product related. But then we get what I believe is the biggest advantage to us, and with RDR coming more and more so, and that's called assets under management. Now, some people specialize and say, I want to be a wealth manager and I'm just going to grow assets under management. But in financial planning, I believe if you do what you do right, and if you do holistic life financial planning, and that includes the client has got a plan, and there may be opportunities in that plan. Maybe tax opportunities, it may be opportunities to make sure your wife is going to be better and your kids is going to be better, maybe opportunities to make sure if you become disabled or dread disease. And you will see what I say in French. I am using the word opportunity. I'm not using the word gap or shortcoming.
Yes.
Because that's a grudge. You know what I'm saying? So it's all the words you use, and words is an important thing in our industry and what we use when we talk about professionalism. And therefore, if you're going to do what you're going to do right, you don't have to specialize. There's nothing wrong with specializing. But if you work according to a financial plan and the consequences products, maybe an investment, maybe an education plan, what doesn't matter what it is, you're going to build an assets under management. So I didn't go about setting an assets under management, but at 0.25 bips or 0.5% ongoing fees and trailer fees, and to be honest, I charge never more than that. I know you can charge up to 1% and 1.14 with VAT and so on. To me, it's about the value add, and the client still feels there's value into it, and therefore keep your pricing low. Don't overprice your investments and so on. And if we can do that, your assets under management becomes your power of time, your power of passive income, and your power of relaxing with your clients instead of trying to force sell something to your clients. And I think people miss the power of passive income. And therefore, at this stage in my life, If I don't take on any new clients, and I won't do it because clients do get referred to me, and sometimes it does fill my niche mark, and sometimes clients do pass away, and it creates, and it sounds not nice to say that, but it creates accommodating space for new referrals. I will only take on clients from qualified referrals. And a qualified referral means the client introduced their friends to us through SMS, email, or text. They even make the appointment sometimes for them. And the first time I see a new client is when they walk into my office.
Yeah.
And that's the first time. So passive income has changed my life. It has changed my kids' life, my wife's life. And it's given me time to give back to the profession. And it's something you just keep on building. And with RDR, going to be important to start building these things long before you go into fee-based practices and so on. And you must go into that. And obviously that's the future. And we all will go that route where at least whatever we do, we'll get paid for. Because too many times we do a lot of things and we call it social responsibility, and clients walk away to somebody else and just use your advice. I don't have a problem with that because I still feel I've contributed to a profession.
Added value.
I've added value.
Yeah.
But it would be nice, obviously, because apart from assets under management, if you can charge for everything, and that means initial advice, ongoing advice, inception advice, and annual review advice on a fee-based basis. Some of the people are doing it, some of the people are doing different things. I wrote articles about using hybrid systems through the conversion of RDR and not RDR and so on.
Yes. Because, I mean, I don't want to get into detail with this, but the fact of the matter is, like with any business, there's what we do, there's how we do it, and then there's how we get paid for it. And the one thing I think we must be careful of in our profession or industry then is not to get, and other people have said this is not me coming up with this, but we must be very careful of labor or connecting our value to how you pay us. How we get paid should be independent. That's a business model thing. But for us, if you are adding value, that is what it's about, because people won't care how you get paid or how they pay you or whatever the case may be. It's like, what are they getting? I think that's something I wanted to add to that conversation.
100%.
Kobus, I want to get a little personal, not too personal, but just maybe you've been around now for a long time, and I've just learned, so that's one thing I could not research about you is what you did before this.
Because that's not on my...
Yes, I've Googled you, I've LinkedIn you, I've tried. But it is very interesting for me to hear where you've come from before joining or becoming a financial advisor. And I want to know, like, just one or two maybe significant times, something that stood out for you since you started in financial services, be it a good or a bad experience. It doesn't matter. You know, it was maybe a time when you found yourself down to the ground, if that ever happened. I sort of get this feeling that you've always been a high achiever. You've always been pushing and driving, which is what propulsion, that's why we came up with a name. It's about people who always drive and push forward, no matter what's happening in their life, you know, and you always have this, you wrote that article, about, I have a dream, you know, you're always positive. You always look at you're not afraid to say when things are not nice or when you don't agree with something, but you always have this positive attitude in this thing. But maybe like one time when things like you were like, what the hell, why did I join this industry maybe? And then on the other hand, you know, what was like a light bulb moment maybe for you in your career to this point?
You know what is interesting, Francois? I think 95% of people that joins our industry or our profession joins in because they've got no other alternative. Isn't that just what our industry sometimes is about? And it's normally the last alternative. But in my case, as you say, I'm a competitive person. And it doesn't matter if it was sport or school or my career, but I'm also a proud person. So achieving makes you proud, you know what I'm saying? And it makes your children look up to you and your family look up to you and your siblings look up to you, because we were a poor family, a very poor family. My father worked for the old Spoorweg of Transnet these days. And we stayed next to railway lines and things like that. And maybe I just said, this is not going to be me, you know what I'm saying? So I was incentivized by looking at, and there's nothing wrong with poor. But the question is, what can you achieve? But somewhere I became a competitive person as well. And when I left after 18 years in a corporate career, I was a divisional MD of a major division of Altron company. And I was getting a package that you can't think about, and company cars and credit cards and flights, and you can call all these things. Until one morning when I woke up and I couldn't live with myself anymore. Because what I was doing to be successful in, especially in the last 5, 6, 7 years of when I was divisional MD and climbing, going up and up and up, is to make company, and because I never stayed in one company for 2.5 years or one division, you have to retrench people. And every time I or my managers retrenched a person, and especially blue-collar workers, what happens? You impact negatively on 8 people's lives. That is the interesting thing. It's a fact. And I said to me, no more. And it was a tough decision because you were earning. I then took a 9-month sabbatical. I didn't stop working. I still worked. But for 9 months, over weekends and evenings and so on, I attended every small medium enterprise conference or expedition, and I looked for my purpose. I first had to find my purpose and then look at the why, and then I had to see, does this link up to my passion? Now that's not easy because what I was then looking for is, how can I change people's lives? So every time something happens, a person goes on retirement or unfortunately die or something like that, I can touch 8 people's lives positively.
Yes.
And to find that industry or that profession where I can make that difference and where I can change people's lives for the positives while changing my own life and my family's life for the positive. There's the why. You see the why.
Yes.
Don't forget the why. And where I can do that, then, and if I can link that career to my purpose and my passion, would that not be easier?
Mm.
And after 9 months in the financial services, I found that opportunity. So it was not coincidental. I resigned. I had to work 90 days because of the position I was in, and I gave my 90 days notice. And I resigned. I geared myself knowing how this financial industry works. As you said, it's tough, commissions and all those things. And I started the next day with nothing. And I had to build a practice and advisors at that stage before I decided I want to do this on my own.
Yeah.
And that was a big moment in my life. Then joining the profession, it was tough. As tough as anything else. Maybe not so tough for me as most newcomers, because I came with a personal brand from the corporate world that I also believed in. And I had many customers and many suppliers owing me. Mm. And I had a list of 345 names, of which, to be honest, I've only used 45 names. From there on, I got referrals, qualified leads, and so on. One of my most proud moments in this profession was when I got my CFP designation.
You say that a lot.
I've had many qualifications in a corporate world. I've been studying for 25 years. I've never stopped studying. I every time trying to study something. But when I got that CFP designation, I got goosebumps. Because it's a tough designation to God. It was incredible to God. And thanks God, there was people that I could go and get help from to help me. That was one of my biggest moments in this industry, in this profession. But that was from a personal thing. I'll never forget the first couple of death claims, disability claims, dread disease claims. Now it's become the norm, because unfortunately we live unhealthy lives and there is crime in this world and all those things. But those first couple of claims are life-changing. That's when you realize this is a noble profession.
Yeah.
This is not just an industry. This is not even just a profession. This is one of our, if you look at our peer professions, engineers, doctors, accountants, this is noble. You change people's lives. You change your own life. And those big changes makes a difference. To me, it's not about all the awards I've won. It doesn't matter if it's FBI and MDRT awards or company awards with the FSPs we support. No, those will come automatically. And those add to the value proposition for your clients. But to me, is knowing that I have done 5 financial needs analysis this week, And those 5 financial needs analysis will change people's lives.
I just want to add, like, looking at you, because people can't see you now, but looking at you when you spoke about your CFP, there's like this big smile on your face. So it's something that comes from the heart. It's not just like, I got my CFP, So that's amazing. Second last question. Crazy but true fact about Kobus Kleyn. It's a question I want to ask all my guests.
I'm just a normal person. I'm not one of those adventurous people that want to climb Kilimanjaro or go and jump down a plane or all those things. Not that I've done some of this, I have, and go down rivers and suicide mountains, they call it, and so on. We all do those things. We all try those things. But I still see myself as just a plain, normal guy out there trying to change a couple of things for myself, the profession, my companies I work for, and my clients, obviously, at the end of the day. Crazy? I don't know if I've done anything crazy. I mean, crazy most probably is being affiliated to 8 different entities. I mean, that's crazy most probably. People say, but how can you do that? Crazy is most probably flying 5 times overseas to whatever destinations and knowing the planes can fall at any stage. And hopefully I'll stay off the MAX planes. But there's many other planes that falls. That's most probably crazy. Crazy is, where I was crazy, is to work 18 to 20 hours. When I did my CFP, I slept 2 to 3 hours because I had my best year in that year. I did my CFP. I tried to get my balance right in life. Obviously, I didn't get it right that year.
But at least you tried.
But I tried. But that's crazy, to do all those things at once. Sometimes you need to not be crazy and try to do too many things. Well, crazy is trying to launch 3 books in 18 months. I mean, that's crazy, but I did it. So if you ask me really what is crazy, but apart from that, I haven't done crazy things like some of my friends and my colleagues when they take a bike and they drive with a scooter through Africa. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Then I want to end off, Kobus, with also an important question, I think, for people listening, is that what do you believe as Kobus Kleyn is maybe the biggest, I won't say necessarily, but what is the reason maybe why financial professionals battle to build bigger practices? Because there's a lot, like in any business environment, there's entrepreneurs that thrive and then 95% is just complaining about everything. What do you think is the one thing that's keeping financial professionals from building that practice that they're actually dreaming about, but they're just not getting there yet?
Francois, that's really about mostly the best question, and it's an important question because I hate to see failures in our profession, because every time there's a failure, there's a client that's orphaned, most probably 9 of 10 times. And it's a client that believed he was on a good track now and is a failure. And when 10 people come into an induction period or come and be trained or come and join this profession, if only 3 of them survive, that's big failures for any profession. And if 3 of them do survive, and 2 years later there's only 1 left, there's problems. Do we agree with that? So here's what I believe the biggest problem is. And that is, firstly, that everyone should know this is a grudge initial purchase, sale, whatever you want to call it. And you need to overcome that in your personal capacity, but also make sure your clients overcome that. Secondly, there's too much sales and too little advice. And I'm not talking existing advisors always, because the industry has changed, the profession has changed, and fintech, like robo-advice and those things, are forcing us to change so we're not disrupted like Uber or the taxi industry or any one of those. And therefore, the mindsets of the training people in the financial service providers, because how does many or most advisors start in this? They either join a financial service providers or brokerage, and somewhere somebody's training them. And the training must convert and evolve away from product training to advice training. And the product training must actually come after that, because you still need to understand how a vehicle is before you sell it, same as how a product is before you sell it, how a retirement annuity works. And the people come in And the people are made promises. And the people are making promises, you can make big money in this industry. And
that's
you can
usually the magnet, eh?
Yes, that's a magnet. You can become stinking rich. You can earn 20,000 a month from month 2 or month 3.
Sky's the limit.
Sky's the limit. You write out your own check. Those are all old sales and recruitment techniques. And it starts with the induction, starts with the training, the take on board of these guys. But it starts with their own mindsets, and because they're coming from all over different careers and so on, and careers where you are paid a salary, and now you don't get paid a salary. Now you need to earn your own fees, your income, your commissions, your ongoing fees, all those things. So I still believe if people will stop training the people wrong, because that's where it starts, and if while that people are being trained, they open their own mind, and they maybe get the opportunity to read a good book of people with experience, or 2 books, or 3 books, or 4 books, while they're on training, and books are being referred to them. And they actually understand that this is not a job. This is not even a career. Because it can be.
Yes.
Because if you're there for that, go and work for a company where you clock in and clock out and earn money. This is a noble profession. And that really is the bottom line.
Yeah.
And therefore, if you take a long-term view, and you are doing everything under your code of conduct and ethics and your own ethics principles for the best interest of the clients and the profession and your service providers and your companies you work for, the rest will happen automatically. You will make money, you will make a living, but you will enjoy hopefully doing it. So therefore, if you can't, and that's a tough one, but if you can't link your purpose and passion, then actually you better manipulate your mind to be passionate about what you're doing. I was very fortunate.
Tell yourself you're passionate.
You have to. You have to change. You have to manipulate your mind. And if you have a stronger mind, you can mostly do it. It's not often that people like me can come in, do their research, and actually link your purpose with your why to your passion and change your life while you're changing your clients' lives, and why hopefully you can change a profession. With the help of a lot of people and affiliations and the FBI and the FIA and MDRT and STEP and all these peoples. And therefore, perseverance is key. The reason these youngsters or newcomers are not making it, it's not youngsters, it's in your career you're a youngster, if I can call it that. Because we got 50-year people entering this industry, and we got 25-year-old people. It's tough for people under 35. I have to be honest. My ideal age for this profession is 35.
To join.
I'm just saying that's my ideal age. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. So that is it. And the average age of our industry is 50 and to 55, depends where you in the world you are. And I hope that newcomers or people that's new into our industry will do their homework before they join the industry. If they're in the industry, will redefine their purpose and their passion. And the training people and the financial service providers and the brokerages must actually know that this training is not a job training. This training is not a career training. This training is professional training for a profession of note.
Yes. Kobus, I'm so happy that you invested your time with us today. I'm taking a lot away from today. Everything we've discussed is extremely valuable. It was nice to get to know you better as well through this interview. Thank you for being here, for sharing your wisdom. So, because a lot of people, they figure something out. They just want to keep it for themselves. And I believe in abundance. I mean, I was also there like 2 years ago, and I thought this is my thing. And I don't want now this one's a competitor. Now everybody wants to do what I'm doing. And I got to a point where I sort of no, when you share, when you just give, when you help, there's enough for everybody. And you said it, there's so many clients. There's like 270. You can't even look after 275 clients most probably. There's enough for everybody. So thank you for sharing your experience, your wisdom. I mean, and getting to travel all over the world. I mean, you get exposure to things that we don't get exposure to because we don't travel. So thank you very, very much for doing that. Please keep your passion. I've got no worry that that'll go away. But I'm excited to see the day that we finally become that noble profession when we no longer talk about an industry. Thank you very much, Kobus.
No, thank you, Francois. And I don't think that day is as far as people think because of the use of social media and personal branding. And I really believe we can achieve that objective with the support of the FBI and the FI and those organizations and professional bodies that care about us and our clients, that we can achieve that in 10 to 15 years, in my lifetime still. And I won't leave this industry or die before we have achieved that.
And thank you for the gift again. So we will put a link down below how they can get in contact in order to get the link as well as the password. And once again, thank you very much. Have a lovely day.
Thank you for listening to Propulsion. If you found this episode valuable, please subscribe and leave us a review on iTunes or your favorite podcasting platform. This will help us tremendously. For more about Propulsion and other valuable information, please visit our website at propulsion.co.za.